One day there was a rabbi. He had just gone to the grocery store and he had his groceries. He's walking home and the sun is setting, it's getting dark, and he's saying the prayer that every Jewish father and mother, son or daughter would say, Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Hear, O Israel, the Lord is God, the Lord is one. He's saying it over and over. He's meditating, reflecting on this verse. He comes to a fork in the road, and he's so caught up in prayer, instead of veering to the right, he goes to the left. He keeps on praying, reflecting and thinking and giving glory to God, when all of a sudden, he hears these words. Who are you, and why are you here? All of a sudden, he looks up, and he realizes he's entered into Roman territory, enemy territory. And so holding the groceries, he puts them down and he looks up at the soldier and he simply says, how much do they pay you? The soldier, not sure what this question has to do with why this guy is here, gets a little bit louder and says, who are you and why are you here? The rabbi says, I am a rabbi, a teacher. My son, how much do they pay you? The soldier, kind of just seeing that this guy was harmless, says, they pay me 2 drachma a day. And the rabbi responds, my son, I will pay you double. If you stand outside my house and every morning when I come or go, will you ask me those same 2 questions? Who are you and why are you here? Friends, those are 2 of the most compelling, defining questions any human can ask and answer. Who are you? And why are you here? Now, I could ask you those questions and you might simply say, here's my name. Here's what I like to do. Here's how many friends I have on social media, Instagram or Twitter or Snapchat. Hey, I could tell you my grades. I could tell you all of these things that I have done. I could tell you my worth, what I come from, what money I have, what brokenness I have, and all of this stuff that we use to try and define who we are and why we are walking on this planet. But I want to just maybe give you another reason. Maybe another way to kind of look at those 2 questions. And I want to tell you about another rabbi, another teacher. His name was Jesus, and he decides to take his disciples on a 32-mile walk. Now, rabbis, they wouldn't tell you where you were going. They simply would just say one day, Le'achrai, which literally means come follow me, and you would just follow the rabbi. You would try to be as close as possible to this rabbi, but you would just be listening to the conversations or to the questions. And in Matthew 16, Jesus takes his disciples, who you have to understand are most likely your age, high school students. There's probably 1 junior higher and probably 1 college-age student and 10 high school students, scholars would say. And they're following Jesus. And these disciples, they hadn't really ever been to where all of the Gentile people were. They had never really gone over to these places that Jesus was about to take them. Everything that they had been told was that place over there is bad. And yet Jesus was taking them on a journey. If you have a Bible, turn with me to Matthew chapter 16. Many of you might know this story, but it comes from verse 13, and it says this: when Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, who do people say the Son of Man is? Now, real quick, he comes to the region of Caesarea Philippi. Now, this city, there was this one god. It's called the god of Pan. It's kind of where we get the word panic from. This god was half goat, half man. And there was all of this myths about this god. Greek mythology has written tons and tons about this god of Pan. He was a god of fertility. And people believed that if you sacrificed or you actually were able to arouse this God, that he would actually begin to bless you with children, security, finances, jobs, food, rain, and everything was about trying to keep the God of Pan happy. And in the Caesarea Philippi, this city was where people worshiped him. Now there's this picture right here that you'll see. Jesus, kind of this old drawing, I love it, he kind of takes them to this hill, and one artist's rendering of this, overlooking the city. And Caesarea Philippi was built on a rock, 1,150 feet up, but inside this rock area, they had built all of these temples. These temples dedicated to Pan and some other Greek gods. But the thing that was so fascinating about this city, next slide, was there was this massive hole in the rock. There was all of this water that would go into that hole, and they believed that the god of Pan lived there. And they believed that that hole was the gate of Hades, the gate of hell. They believed that actually if you entered into that, was like the underworld. That's where all of the blessing or all the negativity came from. And this was the prominent thinking during the days of Jesus. And Jesus decides to bring his disciples here. Now, what you have to understand is that once a year, 250,000 people would kind of converge around that gate, around that hole in that rock, around all of those temples, and they would begin worshiping Pan. And Jesus brings his disciples there. And their worship to this pagan god, it was like a rave. There was just music and food and sacrifice and prostitution. I mean, everything that you might imagine was at work in this place. And the Bible says Jesus takes his disciples here. I don't think Jesus took them when the whole party was going on, but I think Jesus took them to this region. And when they get to this region, he asks that simple question. Hey, who do people say the Son of Man is? All the disciples probably look at each other. Oh man, the Son of Man, that's a big question. It's a capital M. It's like, who do people say like the Son of God is? Look what it says, verse 14. They replied, some say John the Baptist, others say Elijah, and still others, Jeremiah, or any one of the other prophets in the Old Testament. But look at verse 15. Jesus then flips it, and he looks at Peter and goes, what about you? He said. Who do you say I am? Just imagine that. Imagine that moment. You're with Jesus, and all of a sudden, he said, hey, what do people say the Son of Man is? They start throwing out some different kind of names from the Old Testament. They throw out John the Baptist's name, and then he just turns it and he goes, but what about you? Who do you say I am? And at this moment, Peter has a chance to say, I want to tell you what I think about you, what I believe to be true about who you are. And he says this in verse 16. Simon Peter answered, you are the Messiah, the Son of the living God. Now, this word Messiah is a Hebrew word. It's this word that means like the anointed one, the person that we have been expecting, the one who is like king and ruler, the one who reigns supreme. That's who you are. This word Messiah in Greek is where we get the word Christ. I meet so many people who think like Jesus' last name is Christ. It's a title. It's a word filled with expectancy and longing. It's a word that is a declaration that you are the one that we have been hoping for. You are the one that can rescue us. You are the one that can make us right. You are the one that can make us good. You are the one. You are the Messiah. And so Jesus looks at Peter and goes, but who do you say I am? And Peter quickly responds, you are the one I have been hoping for. You are the king, you are the ruler, you reign supreme, you are the Messiah, you are the Son of the living God. He gives a title, but there's such a relationship connected to it. You know, on February 17th, 1963, in a hospital in Brooklyn, New York, a child was born. By the age of 2, this child moved to North Carolina. He had a good little family. He had some older siblings. He loved the game of baseball. In high school, he started playing basketball. He did fairly well, but he got cut from his sophomore varsity team. He tried out again as a junior, and he made varsity. By the time he was a senior, he was an All-American. He could go anywhere he wanted to in college to play basketball. He chose a school in North Carolina. As a freshman, he hit the game-winning shot. And in 1984, he was drafted 3rd overall. Akeem Olajuwon went number 1. Sam Bowie went number 2. Poor guy. He went number 3. Sleepy Eyes Sam Perkins went number 4. And Charles Barkley from Auburn went number 5. He moved to this great city, and he played. And he dominated as a rookie. He was the Rookie of the Year. He played 1,072 games. He averaged 30.1 points per game, 6.1 rebounds per game, 5.2 assists per game. After his second season playing in the league, he went out to a Bennigan's restaurant, and he had a conversation at the bar. This woman by the name of Juanita. They had an on-again, off-again relationship. Finally, they ended up getting married, and they had a couple kids. This man is by far the GOAT. He is the greatest basketball player of all time. I don't care if anyone wants to say LeBron or anybody. Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player ever. Now, I can tell you all of these facts about Michael. But if you ask me if I've ever met him, no, never. I've never met the man. I wear his shoes. I can recognize his silhouette. I can tell you bizarre facts about him. I can tell you that Terry Francona, who is the coach of the Cleveland Indians now, was his minor league baseball coach when he was the Birmingham Barons. I know all these bizarre facts about Michael Jordan, but I've never met him, which makes me a stalker. And the truth is, like, stalkers are crazy, right? And the truth is, I think for many people, they've been stalking Jesus. They know stories about Jesus from the Bible, but the truth is they've never met him. They never had like this personal experience or encounter. They never had this moment where they've ever had to declare once and for all, this is who I say you are. They just know the stories. Man, he fed some people, went to the cross, resurrection. It's awesome, man. I know all these stories. He walks on water. You know, like they know these stories, but they don't know him. And maybe for some of you, that's who you are. Maybe your parents know him. Maybe your friends know him. Maybe you just know stories about him. But I'm asking you, who do you say Jesus is to you? Is he the Messiah? Is he the Christ? Is he the Son of the living God? Is he the one that can actually make all things right in your life? Or is he just someone to know some facts about? And what was so moving in this moment when Jesus turned this question on to Peter, it was almost as if Jesus was a little bit surprised, almost taken back, because he saw that Peter got it. Peter knew who his true identity was. He knew what Jesus came to do, to restore and make new and save and rescue and redeem every person if they wanted a relationship with Christ from their brokenness of the sin. But something happens. If you skip a page or a verse, it says this, in verse 18. It says this, Jesus, and I tell you that you are Peter. The whole time before this, Peter had been going by the name Simon. And at this moment, Jesus goes, and let me tell you this. You just said, I'm the Messiah. I'm going to give you a new name. You're Peter, which in Greek is the word Cephas, which literally means rock. You are rocky to me. And then he says, and on this rock, I will build my church, and the gates of Hades, or the gates of hell, will not overcome it. Okay, real quick. What's the gates of Hades? That big hole in that rock. Jesus is looking down. Who do you say I am? Oh, this is who you are. You're the Messiah. You're the anointed one. You're the one that we've been waiting for. You're the Son of the living God. Awesome. And you know what? You're no longer Simon. You're Peter. And on this rock, I'm going to build my church. And the gates of Hades, all of this is not going to be able to overcome you. Let's step back real quick. For many people, they've thought that when he says, on this rock, I'm going to build this church, he's talking about Peter. Could be. I'm going to use you, broken and fractured Peter, to build my church. I believe that. Some people have said, you know what? Jesus said, I'm going to use you because you actually were the first person of the disciples to profess his true identity. And I believe that too. But there's something else. If you think about 250,000 people and you think about all these pagan temples, you think about Jesus being on a massive rock, 1,150 feet up in the air, and he's looking down at all these pagan temples. I think Jesus is saying, on this rock, in the midst of all of this pain and brokenness, I've brought you here for this reason, to really ask you, who do you think I am? And if you think I am who I truly am, then I want you to go tell those people there. I want to build my church in the heart of culture, in the heart of pain, in the heart of brokenness. And on this rock, I'm going to build my church, and the gates of Hades, the gates of hell will not overcome it. I don't know about you, but I read this passage and it gives me so much hope. Because Jesus is simply going, hey, who am I to you? Who do you say I am? Who do you tell your friends that I am to you? And I think every one of us has to come to grips with this question. But when we say what we truly believe about him, Jesus invites us to build his church, to carry his name, and to be a compelling force for good in our world. But let me ask you this. Who do you say he is? C.S. Lewis, one of my favorite writers, he had this thought. He said that you got to come to this point where you have to really wrestle with the question, who is Jesus? Who is he to you? And he said, you know what, I think this, he called it the great trilemma. There's really only three responses. He's either a liar, and all of the things that he's ever said are false. False. All of the teachings about him and grace and the kingdom of God, false. And when you're asked this question, who do you say Jesus is to you? You have to either say, he's a liar. I just don't believe it at all. The second thing that C.S. Lewis said, maybe he's not a liar, maybe he's just a raving lunatic. Maybe Jesus was just like crazy town. And he would do all this teaching like, dude, love your enemy, and when someone slaps you, like turn the other cheek, like just raving mad. Maybe for some people that's how you see him. But he said the third way is the most dangerous. And when you're asked this question and you go, no, he's not a liar, because I actually think what he said was true, and he's not a lunatic, he's not a madman, there was something about him. The only other option is that he's Lord. That he is who he says he is. And if he's the Lord, then it demands your allegiance. It invites you to actually say that all of his teachings were true. That what he did for you on the cross to set you free, and nothing else could define you. It doesn't matter if you made this team. It doesn't matter if you got into this school. It doesn't matter if this is how big your bank account is. It doesn't matter what kind of car you drive. It doesn't matter who you're with. It doesn't matter unless your life is defined by this man, Jesus. And every one of us has to wrestle with this. Is he a liar? Is he a lunatic? Or is he Lord? Who is he to you? What about you? Who do you say he is? I have two kids. My son, his name is Emerson. He's 9 years old. He looks like Gene Hackman. Not sure how that happened. My daughter is 4, and her name is Mercy June Carter. We're big Johnny Cash fans, so June Carter Cash was Johnny's wife. My son actually named her Mercy. And I think she's going to grow up thinking that no mercy means something entirely different than what many of us think it means. But a couple of weeks ago, she came up from the basement. And she and a friend, they're both 3 years old at the time, were covered in glitter. It was as if these two got into a fight with Tinkerbell and got absolutely destroyed. We rushed them to the bathtub and we baptized them 5 different times, and there's just glitter everywhere. So I decide, I'm like, man, I just gotta go down and see the basement. So I said, hey, Mercy, can you just come with me? And for some apparent reason, I had my phone on, and this is what happened. Watch this. Mercy, what's in your hair?
Sparkles.
What's on the ground? Yeah, oh yeah. It's everywhere. I walk up on stage to teach at church, and someone's like, yeah, there's more glitter on you. I'm like, I can't even hug my daughter because it just her sin just gets on me. Just her sparkles is, my dog went down and rolled in it. I'm like, are you guys kidding me? We're shaving the dog, and it's everywhere. We have been trying to clean up the base. It's everywhere. But if you watch that video again, something stood out to me. And I saw it in real time. That was exactly me seeing it, and I couldn't believe it. And I watched the video again, and something just got me. If you see her, my daughter, she's just standing with her shoulders down. She already thinks I'm the worst kid. And I'm like, hey, what's in your hair? And she's like, sparkles. What's on the ground? Sparkles. But think about this for a second. Why does she already have shame? She's 3. At 3 years old, she's already carrying something. I did something wrong. And I imagine for so many of you here today, there's things in your life that you've just done and you carry it, and it's so weighty, and it creates so much worry, so much anxiety, so much control from the past, and I see it. So many of you are just like the Walking Dead. You're just walking, and there's so much angst and pain and suffering upon you. And so we just try to numb it out. We numb it out on social media. We numb it out by eating. We numb it out by buying stuff. We numb it out just by performing. We numb it out by trying to be perfect. We numb it out by trying to have it all together. And yet, everything that we do tries to avoid the question, who do you say I am? Because if you actually believe that Jesus is the Messiah, the Lord, the Son of the living God, then you know what? Then you recognize that on the cross, he took everything from you. Every sin, every brokenness, everything that you've ever done, everything that you will do, you have been set free by grace. If you think he's a liar, then you carry this. If you think he's a lunatic, you definitely carry this. And you keep searching and chasing for anything to give you your next fix, to numb out that sinking feeling of shame and pain and angst and frustration. So who do you say he is? Liar, lunatic, or Lord? I was in Chile, and I took my friend. We were doing some work, and I said, hey, this amazing break in southern part of Chile. There's all of these great waves. I've never surfed it. You got to come with me. The problem is he's from Grand Rapids, and he's never surfed before. But some of my friends in Chile, they're actually professional surfers, so I'm like, don't worry, just stay with them. You're going to be okay. We only had a certain number of boards and wetsuits, so I said, hey, you know what? I'm just going to stay in the van. I'll read a book, a little bit of just solo time. It's going to be great. Go have an absolute ball. But I looked at my friend Corey, and I said, Corey, here's the deal. Here's the deal. You please Know this. Wherever they go, you go. Wherever they go, you go. Do not try to be your own man and go your own way. Wherever they go, you go. You get this? Yes? All right, go have a good surfing outing. I go and I'm reading. And then all of a sudden, my friend, a Chilean friend who was waiting with me, but he was sitting on the beach watching them surf. He runs up to the van. He opens the door and he goes, "Hey, Steve, your friend Corey, he's about to die." I said, "What? What?" I said, "What do you mean?" "He's going very far away." And I'm like, "What?" I put the book down. I run out there. Everyone is over here. Corey is way up trying to get to Peru, you know? And I'm like, "Dude, you had one job. Where they go, you go." And he's just way up there. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And I can't whistle, and I'm trying to get their attention, the Chilenos' attention. My Spanish isn't very good. And I'm just watching Corey flailing his arms on the board. He's falling off, but he's screaming something. He's screaming something at the top of his lungs. And so I go out in the water. It's up to waist high. I go up to the water, and I'm just kind of like, what is he saying? And then I hear it. You know what he's screaming? "Por favor! Por favor! Por favor!" And I'm like, "Dude, that's your word? Please?" That's your Spanish, right? Right there. It's like, well done, Grand Rapids. All right. And I'm singing, and I'm like, oh man, what do we do? And finally, we get the attention of these surfers. We just hunt them down. My friend Eric just ends up paddling out to him, just drags him in, and he's like a beached whale. He just comes in and he lays there. I do not have the gift of mercy. So I just walk up there. I'm like, "Dude, you had one job. I'm not even going to go after that. I'm going to go after, were you yelling por favor?" And he's laying there, and he's like, "I did not know what to say." And I just think about this, though. When you are in dire desperation, maybe that is the right word to say. Please. Please help. Maybe for some of you in this season of life, you were trying to do this on your own, and you've just kind of veered off in the current of life, and you just feel like you're drifting. And just pressure and just weight of your own choices and your own pain and trauma in your house and drama with your friends and all of this, and you're just drifting, and you feel farther and farther and farther away from the questions of who are you and why are you here. And I just wonder tonight that what if Jesus was here, and what if he just looked at you and just said, "But what about you? Who do you say I am? What about you? Who do you say I am?" It doesn't matter how far you've drifted. It doesn't matter where you are. He's still going to come find you, and he's still going to say, "Hey, no, but what about you? Do you think I'm a liar? Do you think I'm a lunatic? Or do you think I'm Lord?" And I come back to this one point, and I was driving today just praying over this time, praying over you all, praying over this message, and a song came on the radio that I have not heard since I was in high school, which is scary. And this song just came on, and I remembered some of the words. I remembered listening to it way back then. But then there was this line at the very end of this song, and it went like this: "It has to start somewhere. It has to start sometime. What better place than here? What better time than now? All hell can't stop us now. And it just started building, and that's all he was screaming. And all of a sudden, I felt as if I was reading Matthew 16, and Jesus says, you know what? With me, the gates of hell will not overcome you. All of the worry, all of the anxiety, all of the sin, all of the stress, all of the performing, all of the numbing, all of that. No. In me, I will overcome all of that evil, all of that brokenness, and I will tell you who you are and why you are here. And the invitation is, will you receive it? Will you receive it? Just beautiful response that the Move team has created. And Jesus said to Peter, you, Rocky, on this rock I want to build my church. And the gates of Hades will not overcome it. And rocks were like symbolic. If you go to the Old Testament, rocks were like these memorial stones that you would set up. And they would almost declare that God had done something. Rocks were like immovable. They were like this recognizing the reality of a steadfast God, a God who could not be shaken. And it's so amazing that God calls his disciples, Jesus calls one of his disciples a rock. And what we want to do is we want to invite any of you who have never said yes to Jesus. I'm not talking about someone who said yes last year at CIY. I'm talking about someone who has never, ever made a public declaration to say yes to Jesus. And if maybe something in you is stirring, maybe it's around the question, man, is he a liar? No, he's not. Is he a lunatic? No. He's Lord. He's the Messiah. He's the Son of the living God. He's the one who can set me free from all of my brokenness and all of my pain. If that's you, we want to invite you just to come up, and right down here, there's a whole bunch of rocks. This is for first-time believers. People who are going public for the very first time. We want you to pick up that rock and literally just symbolically declare that you know who Jesus is. And you'll drop it in, and you're going to make a little noise. And I guarantee you the sound of that noise that none of you saw coming, all of heaven will be rejoicing. All of heaven, all of the angels, God, everyone will be leaning in going, yes, that's it. Join with me. Let's change this world. But it begins. It begins. So here's what I want to do. I want to invite you to stand right now. And for those of you who are Christ followers, I'm just going to ask right now that you just be praying. And maybe have your hands open right now. You would just be praying right now. God, I pray that, God, you would just feel the freedom to move in this place. As the band just comes out, God, I'm praying that many people, for the first time ever, will decide to come forward, to grab one of those rocks, to declare once and for all that you are the Messiah, you are the one that we've been expecting, the one that we've been longing for, the one that can make things right, the only one that can save us and rescue us, the only one that can give us access to you. You are that person, God, and I pray that anyone who maybe has thought that you were just a liar, that your son was a liar, God, I pray that they would say, no. You're the only good one, the only perfect one. You're the Lord. You're not a lunatic. You're not crazy. You're the Lord. And I pray that this response right now of people coming forward, they wouldn't just walk up by themselves, because Christianity, it was never meant to be a solo sport. It's always in community. Maybe if you're someone who's sensing God's whisper, sensing God's stirring, that today you don't need to numb out. You don't need to let hell and evil win. That tonight, right now, you can go public. Maybe grab a friend and just say, hey, I need to come down front. I need to throw this rock in. And when you drop that rock in, I guarantee you this place will just go nuts. We love celebrating people coming to Jesus. But friends, it has to start somewhere. It has to start sometime. What better place than here? What better time than now? With your love, with your grace, with your peace, with what your son did on the cross for us, all hell can't stop us now. So may you feel the freedom to respond. If you've never said yes to Jesus, you can make your way, grab a rock, and drop it.